My name is Destiny, and today I'll be facilitating the session on decent work for all, a catalyst for sustainable economic growth. Um, so without further ado, let's get into it. So, on today's agenda, we'll be looking at, first thing here is the acknowledgement. Next thing, you get to know who I am or who am I. Then the next would be the introduction to the session that we're actually having. Then the next would be a quick check-in. Then we'll move on to why we are even here in the first place. Then that's understanding SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. Then we'll move on to the role of decent work in economic growth, case study in Nigeria we're using here, then recommendations, conclusions, and we'll take question and answer. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Adeyinka of Instride Pathways Youth Foundation. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I know that this is an initiative that Instride Pathways started this career boost initiative for African youth, just to empower young people. I'm told that most of the people that are here are mostly high school students and a bit of university students. So, and I know that the courses you'll be taking here would be UI UX design, cybersecurity, animation, and then on the side you get certificates. You also get guest lectures, which is one of these that I'm talking about. That'll be on the SDGs, the 17 SDGs, and then the essays, the debates, the awards, and then talent discovery. So once again, thank you very much for this opportunity. So who am I? So my name is Destiny. Destiny Nwebe. I'm a community and communications expert, and I'm the founder of the Destiny Nwebe Crib. This is a community that makes resources and opportunities available for youths, accessible actually, for youths worldwide, with over 3,000 members across social media platforms. So we're doing most of our operations online. So you can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Twitter. We just recently started there, and we're hoping to have more conversations there. So I'm passionate about personal development of youth, and champion 2 SDGs. So SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, and SDG 4, quality education. So introduction to today's session. Today we'll focus on learning and understanding the following. Number 1, what is SDG? So decent work, what is decent work and economic growth? The role of decent work in economic growth. We use Nigeria as a case study, and provide recommendations for improvements in Nigeria. So just a quick check-in to make the most of this session. And just before we start, please ensure that you are in a quiet place. You sit there in a quiet place, and that your heart is open and ready to learn. You have a notepad on your phone, maybe, or jotter, a pen, and maybe a snack, a quick snack that you could that's close to you. If we have all those ready, I'm going to believe that you do, right? I'll take that as a yes. Okay. So shall we begin? Are you ready? I'll take that as another yes. Thank you. So introduction, I know that I'm supposed to talk about just SDG 8, but I'm going to talk about what SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, are. So they're a set of global objectives by the UN that was established in 2015 to address pressing issues relating to social, economic, and environmental challenges. And the goal is that all of this is achieved by 2030. So if you look at this here, you can see the different goals: partnerships, peace and justice, life on land, climate action, economic growth, and so on and so forth. So understanding SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. So goal 8 is about promoting inclusive and sustainable economic growth, employment, and decent work for all. Now, globally, labor productivity has increased, and the unemployment rate has decreased. However, more progress is needed to increase employment opportunities, especially for young people, and to reduce informal employment and labor market inequality. And particularly when it comes to the gender pay gap, that's how much women are paid compared to men in certain roles. Or yeah, then to promote safe and secure work environments and improve access to financial services to ensure sustained and inclusive economic growth. All of these are from the UN. I hope that wasn't too long for you. Yeah. So what is decent work? So according to the UN, decent work means that opportunities for everyone to get work that is productive, delivers a fair income, security in the workplace, social protection for families, better prospects for personal development, and social integration. Please note this thing. Decent work means that the work is productive, the work delivers on a fair income, there's security in the workplace. Security, not in sense of insecurity, is how much that the work can actually last. And there's social protection for families. And there's better prospect when it comes to like personal development. And I think that for youth and for young people like you and I, this matters to us. So what is the problem when it comes to decent work? What is the problem when it comes to economic growth? So there's a lack of decent work. There's insufficient investment, rising debt, lack of equitable pay, trade tension, economic uncertainties, and underconsumption in most economies, even in Nigeria. Now, the thing is, in Nigeria, I feel like we actually have work. I remember telling my uncle one time that we work like elephants, but we eat or we get paid like ants, which is the truth if we're being honest. So decent work would not leave you feeling like that. Decent work, you know that, oh, whatever I put into this work that I do, I'm getting value for it. It could be in terms of money, it could be in terms of anything, but you know that at least you're getting value. So what is the role of decent work in economic growth? Oh, sorry, I think my slides. But yeah. Decent work contributes to economic growth by number one, poverty reduction. So if you look on the right side here of this slide, it says that 1 in 4 young people are not in education, they're not in employment or any sort of training. And then it says that global unemployment has actually fallen since the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we found that 4 in 10 adults in low and middle income countries just opened their first bank account. So global economic recovery continues, but it's on a slow trajectory. That's really, really slow. If you see from here, you can see. So how does decent work really contribute to economic growth? So number one is poverty reduction. In terms of, now the UN says that if you live below $2 per day, you're classified as poor. Now, I think in Nigeria, the exchange rate says that a dollar to naira is about 1,500 officially or unofficially, or 1,600 thereabout. So that means that I think I might have to stop sharing my video for now because of, yeah, I might have to stop sharing my video. But I'll continue. So like I said, so there's poverty reduction. Next would be the improved standard of living. So like I said before, for poverty reduction, if you are living below $2 per day, according to the UN, so that's about 3,000 naira here in Nigeria, you are considered as poor. So I'm not saying anybody's poor, but then you get what I mean. Next would be improved standard of living. Decent work would mean that people would, the basics would be common again, like bread is so expensive in Nigeria, beans is so expensive. The basics are no longer basics. Like even renting a place to stay is become very expensive. So it will improve standard of living. It would also ensure stable employment in the sense that people would have stable employment. Like, you know that, oh, my job is secured. I'm going to work in this place for the next 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. And then I could save, I could invest, I could watch how I consume, and then see how maybe I could leave a down payment for maybe a house in the next 3 years, that kind of thing. It also help with investment in the future. Now, economic growth then leads to reduced wage gap. Talked about that between male and female. It also diminishes. I don't think it would diminish inequality, but I know that it would reduce inequality to a very considerable level. And the next would be greater economic security for all. Yes, that would be one of the ways that economic growth would lead to contribute. Then, case study of Nigeria, bringing it home. Yeah, current economic employment landscape is that unemployment rate is currently at 4%. I checked before, and it used to be 33% as 2020, but I think since the pandemic, things have really changed, and the country has gotten better. Then, informal sector, there's like a lot of people are in the informal sector, and what this means is that there's no job security, there's no benefits attached. Then next would be the economic diversification. So there we have every reliance on oil, with little focus on other parts of the economy. Although I think that this generation is doing better when it comes to like focusing on other, let's say tech in Nigeria is beginning to, do better. Then lack of infrastructure and funding. Say, take for example, things like, okay, now I'm actually speaking here, and then they take the light. That's the kind of thing you would expect in Nigerian setting, like things like telecommunications. And I remember one time there was a fuss with the network and how telecom companies here are not doing so. One of my friends posted that, is this the kind of network I want to use to compete with global talent? And it's so true when you think about it. And then funding is also an issue here in Nigeria. There's not enough funds. It's funny because then the challenge is that there's number one, there's a skill mismatch. So there's employers complain actually that there's a gap between and it's not students' fault really, because there's a gap between the skills demanded for and the skills that the employees actually have, that people actually have. What the school curriculum is teaching is not in line with what the market is actually saying now. Most of what the school curriculum, I'm talking university, is not in line with. So it's better to get it right even before you enter uni. I remember a friend of mine, a younger friend of mine, is like, hey, I want to study this in university. And I'm like, I don't think you should study that. Why? Because those are not the jobs of the future. When you're thinking of picking a course to study in the university, you want to think of what are the problems that are here now? What are the kind of skills that employers are actually looking for? That kind of thing. Next is infrastructure issues. So poor infrastructure, roads, light, water, telecommunications, network, things like that. Then security concerns. Sometimes it looks like Nigeria is just Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Calabar, those places. But then there's like other places. I've heard of Jos, I've heard of Kaduna, I've heard of Kano, and there are other things happening here, but then it looks like everything's just concentrated in one area. Why? Because one day you could just wake up and they say, oh, they've kidnapped XYZ people in Borno or Sokoto or those kind of places. I'm sorry, I'm not mentioning names. I'm just saying those are kind of things we hear in the news. So, what are my recommendations? Number one is policy reform. So, implement and enforce labor laws to ensure fair wage and safe working conditions. If I know that they say that, I know that I've heard that in other advanced countries, say like the US or Canada or like Japan, you're not supposed to work a certain number of hours. You're supposed to work a certain number of hours. If you exceed that number of hours, you could be sued for it. If that kind of thing was in Nigeria, it would mean that everybody would take their job seriously, both on the employer side and um, on the employee side. It means that you know that you have, let's say you have 7 hours to work a day or 8 hours to work a day. You know that, oh, I have to maximize this time. No time for distractions, no time to just do whatever I feel like should be done. I have to do this and do it well. And then employers will also know that, oh, I have to keep these faithful people, people that are working well. I have to also give them good working conditions, not just your salary. There's also things like health insurance, and that could help. Next would be support for SMEs and startups. So support like small and medium enterprises in terms of funding, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of, just to help, because they help create jobs that we actually work in, just to make that sector formal and to move from the informal sector. Then next is infrastructure development, invest in infrastructure in terms of so they can help with business growth and job creation. And then would have investment in education and training. Now, aligning educational programs with market needs to bridge the skills gap, just like I said before. When I think education, I do not think schooling. I think skills. And I want everyone to start thinking like that. Don't think that I'm just going to school to get a certificate or to get a degree, or I'm just going to get YF or IGCSE or something like that. Think, what am I learning from this? How is this going to be used in the world when I'm out of university or when I'm in the world? Like, what kind of things do employers expect me to have? Because if this thing is actually true, they're saying that Nigerian graduates are not employable. Well, that's when you hear people say, oh, there's no jobs. There's actually jobs, but sometimes people don't actually have the right skills for those jobs. So that brings me to the end of the conclusion of our session today. The question remains, will decent work really act as a catalyst for sustainable growth? Based on what you've learned in the last, say, 14 slides, and I think this is almost like 20 minutes or more, what do you think? I'm leaving that question to you. So let me know, maybe in the comments or in any way that you could put your contributions down. Do let me know. And I'll give time for question and answers. If you've got questions, if you've got anything you'd like to know, just let me know. I'll find a way to answer them and be an active contributor to this. And thank you. So that's where we come to the end of today's this session on decent work for all, a catalyst for sustainable growth, sustainable economic growth. So I'd like to know if this was helpful for you. Let me know. And I'd like to thank Instride Pathways Youth Foundation again and Mr. Dinginka for reaching out to me, for giving me this opportunity, and for these 30 days of learning that we are all going to be doing. I think it's wonderful, and it's a very great way to, impact the youth. And yeah, so just before I go, if you've got questions, if you've got anything, just let me know. You can reach out to me if you want to reach out to me. I'm available on LinkedIn, on Instagram as well, but I prefer LinkedIn if you'd like to reach out to me. And thank you very much for this opportunity again, Instride Pathways. I'm very grateful, and yeah, I hope this was helpful. Thank you.